CNN political commentator Angela Rye and CNN legal analyst Laura Coates join me now. The tone of this hearing, I have to say, was less combative than we're used to between Democrats and Republicans. I want you two to take a listen to some of the House Republicans today. Let's roll that tape.
Today is a day to set our politics aside and focus on sound policies for our country.
Hopefully, we can have both parties working together to actually accomplish something here and not just point fingers.
This committee has a history of working together. Let's do this, and let's get with the president and the Senate and make a difference.
Angela, let me start with you. Are you optimistic that this might be a sign that Democrats and Republicans can actually work together and come towards some solutions?
Well, Jake, I think the proof, quite frankly, is in the pudding. Folks have been yelling Black Lives Matter since the death of Trayvon Martin, and we know how those cases turned out. We know that not much has changed, and we've seen reform take place little by little. And even with some of those reforms in place, Jake, police departments tend to run afoul of the rules. And so the question really becomes not just will this measure be bipartisan, but the question really is, are there enough well-meaning people in city governments, in state governments, and at the federal level who are willing to ensure that police officers are held accountable, that department funding is tied to some of the solutions that are put forth? And I think on a larger level, there's a groundswell right now, Jake, about defunding the police. Are people willing to divest from police departments and pour much needed resources into investing into marginalized communities and Black communities? That is where the rubber will meet the road here. I know there are plenty of activists, many of them friends of mine, who are saying that this particular measure doesn't go far enough. It is the beginning of a conversation, but it is exactly that, because a lot more needs to be done.
And Laura, I want you to take a listen to one of the president's top defenders on Capitol Hill, Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, talking today about working with Democrats on this.
There is not a legitimate defense of chokeholds or lynching or bad cops that get shuttled around, and you will be able to count on Republican cooperation as we hone these ideas and hopefully pass them and get them to the president's desk.
Where do you think this ultimately ends up, given the fact that even if there is some bipartisan agreement in the House of Representatives, this is going to have to go to the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans. And though there's an effort there, and Senator Tim Scott's been active in a lot of these issues when it comes to body cameras and the like, there is going to have to be bipartisan agreement for anything to actually happen.
There will be. And of course, the idea of there being a bipartisan support for this is going to be a very important step, because as we know, as much as we'd like to have well-meaning people and people who say what they'd like to have happen, we're going to have legislative buy-in, but it's also going to be more than that. It'll have to require the executive branch to buy in and also the judicial branch, because you're going to have a holistic and comprehensive approach here. It's going to have to include perhaps tying funding in order to have some national standards and using the power of the purse. It's going to be about that national registry. It's going to be about having to track those officers who are problematic, and about the state and local levels and individual police departments doing what they need to do to enforce. And finally, qualified immunity will have to be looked at, as is the standard by which officers are judged in the use of force they use. That falls in the lap of the Supreme Court. And so while I want there to be buy-in, it's got to be holistic across all branches of government.
All right, Laura Coates and Angela Rye, thank you so much. Always good to have you on. Up next,